Good morning, and welcome to this virtual service for April 26, 2020 at Cedars Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Reverend Zachary Vinzen, and I am the minister here at Cedars. It's my pleasure to welcome you today and thank you for taking the time to tune into this service. Whether you're a longtime member and friend of this congregation, or this is your very first time joining us, I hope this service allows you a chance to take a deep breath and reconnect to those sources of meaning that sustain you in your day-to-day life. At Cedars, it's our spiritual practice to work to affirm the worth and dignity of every person. And so no matter who you are, where you're from, who you love, or what you believe, I hope that you feel welcome here, and that we'll use this time to be reminded of the sacred connection that binds us one to another, and the obligation that comes when we acknowledge that connection. And so with that said, I want to invite us to continue to arrive into this space by listening to today's prelude. So last week during our Zoom coffee hour, which I'll note is happening again after the service today, the link for that can be found by looking in the most recent version of the Beacon. Anyway, So last week in our virtual coffee hour, Carol Ann Davidson asked the question of us is, what are the things that we are going to carry forward after this time of quarantine into our lives? What are those lessons or new ways of being together that we're going to carry forward? And when she asked this question, it struck me that up until this point, we've been talking a lot about what we needed to let go. The things that we needed to sort of stop doing or do differently since we're not able to meet in person. So to give you an example of something we had to let go of, we let go of in-person church services. And currently, for the last several weeks and for the weeks in the foreseeable future, we are planning to meet in this virtual space and hold our church services this way. There are other things in terms of we can't meet in person for pastoral care, for any number of things. And so we've talked a lot in the last weeks about what we've had to change or let go of as a community. And really the importance of letting go of those things. But we've just begun to start talking about the learnings that are coming out of this time and how we are in community in new ways and what this will mean in the time going forward after we're back in person. And as I was thinking about this pattern of sort of what we will cling to as well as what we will let go of, the things that we will hold from this time as well as the things that we had to let go of during this time. And so thinking of all of this, one of Aesop's fables came to mind. And it's the fable of a fig and an olive tree. And so the story goes that long, long ago, there was a little fig tree that started to grow. And at the same time this fig tree started to grow, an olive tree began growing nearby. These two trees sort of grew up together. They knew each other, and year after year they sort of grew to fill the space and came very close to touching. And these trees spent a lot of time talking with each other and getting to know each other. And then as the years went by, there was something that the olive tree began to really give the fig tree a hard time about. You see, the fig tree every year grew new leaves, and from those leaves grew to be this big, beautiful green tree, and then grew its fruit. Its fruit was harvested, the figs were harvested, and in time the leaves, like many deciduous trees, they turned brown and yellow and fell off. And the olive tree thought this was really peculiar and honestly even ridiculous, because you see, the olive tree kept its leaves. Yeah, sure, leaves might fall off, but never all at once. And throughout the whole year, the olive tree would be green, despite if it had the olives growing on it or not. The olive tree always had its leaves. And so the olive tree started to give the fig tree a hard time about the fact that the fig tree was always losing its leaves. And this went on year after year and continued to go on. And the fig tree tried not to let this sort of harassment get to it. But the truth is it did, and the fig tree felt a little bit hurt. That was until one day when the olive tree was giving a hard time to the fig tree about the fact that the fig tree had no leaves on it. And while this was happening, they noticed that it began to snow. And the snow fell down. And as it fell, it began to accumulate. And as it began to accumulate, each of the leaves of the olive tree began to grow heavy. And as they grew heavy, the olive tree noticed itself beginning to be pulled down toward the ground, and the leaves kept catching snow, and more accumulated, and the olive tree felt itself growing heavier and heavier until finally the roots gave way and the tree came crashing to the ground. The olive tree came crashing to the ground because of its inability to let go. It was unable to let its leaves fall off like the fig tree. And as a result, sort of let the weight of the world pile up until it was too much. The fig tree, on the other hand, because of its willingness to sort of let go, was able to withstand the snow. Sure, some accumulated on the fig tree, I'm sure, but not enough to cause the fig tree to come crashing to the ground. And so at this time, I share this story as a way of getting us to begin to think about those things that we need to hold on to, as well as those things we need to let go of. What are the things in our life that start to weigh us down, or perhaps no longer serve us in the current situation? And also, what are those things, those new learnings that are worth clinging to? And so as we come together to worship this day, I'd invite us to ponder these questions together and continue to ponder them as we join together in singing our opening hymn, hymn number 16, "'Tis a Gift to be Simple," followed by our Cedars chalice lighting and the singing of our mission song, before having a reading of a poem by the poet William Blake. Come, let us worship together. As we come together to worship, we remind ourselves to treat all people kindly, because they are our brothers and sisters, to take good care of the earth, because it is our home, and to live lives full of love and goodness, because that is how we all will become the best that we can be. A Poison Tree by William Blake. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not, my wrath did grow. And I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears. And I sunned it with smiles, and with soft deceitful wiles. And it grew both day and night, till it bore an apple bright. And my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. And into my garden stole, when the night had veiled the pole. And in the morning glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree. And I'll read this poem through one more time, so that way you can have a second chance to listen to it. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not, my wrath did grow. And I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears. And I sunned it with smiles, and with soft deceitful wiles. And it grew both day and night, till it bore an apple bright. And my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. And into my garden stole, when the night had veiled the pole. In the morning glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree. At this time, I'd like to invite us into a moment of meditation, followed by a song of reflection, When the Universe is Ready by David Roth, before entering a time of prayerful reflection together. Take this time to breathe with me. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. As we continue to breathe together, allow your mind to still and your body to relax. Feel yourself enter this moment as you arrive in the present, here and now. Breathing in and out. And with each breath, let a wave of calmness, a wave of relaxation, a wave of healing wash over your body as you continue to breathe in and out. And as you breathe, call to mind the fable of the fig and olive tree that we considered earlier. Remember the olive tree that clung to its leaves, mocking the fig tree for its willingness to shed its leaves each year. In the end, it was the olive tree's own unwillingness to let go that caused it to come crashing down. And the fig tree, well versed in letting go, the fig tree continued to flourish and bear fruit for years to come. As we continue to breathe together, ask yourself, how am I like the fig tree? And how am I like the olive tree? What is it in you that you cling to? And what is it in you that you must be willing to let go of? And each moment, we are given the choice between being the fig or olive tree. And each moment, we must make the choice between holding tightly or letting go. What are the things we must cling to? What are the things we must be willing to let go of? And how do we know the difference between these two? Let us sit together in a moment of silence as we work to discern the answers to these questions for ourselves. May we continue to reflect on those things that we must be willing to let go of and the things we must be willing to cling to as we listen to David Roth's song, When the Universe is Ready, followed by a moment of prayerful reflection.
My plans fly out the window, agenda's broken down. There's nothing else to do right now but stop and look around. People frozen in their tracks are dealing with the same. And now is not the time or place to find someone to blame. When the universe is ready, so am I. When the universe is ready, so am I. The mighty sands are shifting by and by. When the universe is ready, so am I. We have bottled up our oceans, we have fouled up all the air. For the poison of our progress, we are fully unprepared. For the consequence of actions, for these outcomes we've brought forth, it is time to pay attention to the wisdom of the earth. When the universe is ready, so am I. When the universe is ready, so am I. The mighty sands are shifting by and by. When the universe is ready, so am I. Behold a new beginning, a vision like a star. Mother Earth self-regulates when we have gone too far. I'm looking out my window, I see my neighbor wave. We're singing from this distance, and we're closer to the day, and closer to the moment when we have our sweet embrace. What a blessing it will be to meet you in that place. When the universe is ready, so am I. When the universe is ready, so am I. The mighty sands are shifting by and by. When the universe is ready, so am I.
I was told there would be days that feel like a storm is at the door. Nights when the crack of thunder and flash of lightning cause fear to shudder through you. The wind has whispered to me of grief, of a time when tears will flow with raindrops. Like a house standing against the gale, I find myself wondering, how long will this last? How long can this last? How long can I last here like this, afraid, yet knowing my fear will come to nothing? It's okay to be afraid sometimes. It's okay to not know what to do next or how you're gonna do it. It's okay to cry and let grief and anxiety wash over you. You can't be strong all the time, nor should you try. Sometimes you just need to let your feelings out, and that's okay. Sometimes the house needs to give way to the gale and let the raindrops of the heart wash clean the windows of the soul, shattering the glass, letting your true self out, honesty and authenticity rising from the rubble. Sometimes that fear that shudders through you is necessary to loosen, dislodge, and make room for the hope that will be your home. The beams remain. You will rebuild. The foundation persists despite the tempest. The storm will pass. This storm has passed. This storm will come again. Again, there will come a day when you hear the wind howling at your door. And in the time when that day comes, just like this one, you will know there is value in being blown apart only to rebuild again in love. Until that day comes, I will listen to the wind and prepare to meet the raindrops with eyes wet with tears, ready to quench the thirst of the parched earth, greeting each storm with the certainty that this too shall pass. May it be so. Generosity is a spiritual practice. It's a practice that allows us as individuals to connect to the larger whole. It's a practice that encourages us to bring our resources together and collectively take on all the things that we could never take on as individuals. Generosity is the practice that keeps this community going. The fact that we are gathered this day in this virtual space is a testament to past generosity by members of this community. And because I hope that we will continue to meet in the weeks and months and years ahead, I hope that you'll continue to be generous with this community. In a moment, our offertory will play. It's a song titled Robin's Song by our own music director, Chris Smella. While this song is playing, a link to our PayPal account will be displayed on the screen. Take this opportunity to go and practice the practice of generosity. Or if you'd prefer to give a check, you're welcome to write a check and mail it to the address that will also be displayed on the screen. As I said, it's your generosity that keeps this community going. And I'm grateful for all that you have given. And I hope that you will continue to give so that we have a solid foundation to build from when we do finally return to in-person meetings. At this time, the offering will now be gratefully received. I thank you for those who showed your generosity during that time. And again, thank you to Chris for the music. I also want to note that I noticed that some of you caught a typo in preformed, not performed, in the prelude. Those things happen. I was laughing here as I saw the comment come in. So, again, good morning and welcome. I'm trying to get situated in a way that feels good here. I spent some time this past week reflecting as I was preparing for the board meeting for April. We met this on Thursday evening on Zoom. And as I was reflecting, it occurred to me that this Sunday really marks the approximate 1 year anniversary since many of you got to meet me. It was the last Sunday in April of 2019 that I came and spent my first Sunday service with all of you during candidating week. And we spent the next week together, and on May 5th of 2019, you all voted to call me as your minister. And so in preparation, again, I keep feeling like here we are coming back to these milestones and recognizing that I was like, there's a lot of things that feel more certain. I mean, I know I'm here with all of you and plan to continue to be here with all of you. And despite some of those certainties, there's a lot of things that feel uncertain in this moment. And that uncertainty is a bit reminiscent of how I felt personally a year ago. Once, things were decided, I still had a lot of things to transition to be ready to meet with all of you, to come and arrive as your minister, for you to be ready for me to be your minister. And that here we are after navigating those uncertainties with even more uncertainty. The other thing that occurred to me in reflecting on this date, the 1-year anniversary of when we all really first got to meet each other, was I can't believe that it's been a year. And I mean that in all the best ways. This year has absolutely flown by. And at the same time, it seems to kind of have drug on. There's this weird sort of wonky nature. It's a weird passage of time that contradicts itself. And it's hard for me to fully wrap my head around or understand that here we are a year later from that first meeting together. One feature of this timeline that does help me put it into context, however, is realizing where we are today compared to where we were at this point a year ago. As I said, we navigated a whole lot of those uncertainties. We began building relationships, both in our community with each other and beyond Cedars. We began doing some work, and I think we all said that, hey, look, we're starting to bear some fruit here. And we definitely saw the progress that we made through that uncertainty together. And looking at this factor, a clarifying feature begins to emerge in this timeline in our relationship together for me. For me, the thing that gives this weird time its sped up, slowed down feature is the fact that we just threw ourselves into it. We threw ourselves into all of the newness of being together in relationships. We learned to embrace each other, to learn from each other. In our time together, we practiced discerning what is ours to do, what is life-giving, what is sustainable, and what isn't. I think at one point, some of you may remember a sermon I gave on this very topic, where the refrain in the sermon came from a line of a poem that said, "We must weigh the crushed velvet and choose." And in this sermon, I talked about how we need to do the work of discerning what we need to do and what we need to not do. And that discernment was going to make our future together fruitful. And in discerning these things, we've begun to grow. We've continued to grow together. And I believe it's this growth that gives our time that wobbly feeling, that sense of, I can't believe it's a year, and oh my God, it feels like it's been way more than a year. It's like growing pains, or a number of other euphemisms. We worked to embrace new possibilities, new relationships, always. And with this, there's always a certain degree of wonkiness in general, but I think, it was my first ministry here with you. You all made the decision to call a young, unseasoned minister. There was all sorts of situations that sort of added to this, and in general, newness is weird. And we still engaged each other. And just as these feelings of wonkiness began to settle, suddenly we found ourselves in the midst of a pandemic. We found ourselves facing even more uncertainty. There's a whole nother new reality that we're unsure of sitting before us. And as I recognize that and recognize where we've been and where we are, one of the things that really gives me hope in this time is that I know we're going to be okay because we've already navigated some really wonky, weird stuff together. We've worked on sort of sorting that uncertainty. And that I think that we'll be okay because we know a little bit about that art of discernment, of weighing the crushed velvet and choosing, of knowing that we can't do it all. But still, in this time, I think that there is a lot of questions about what is it that, I need to shed and let go of? And what are the things that I do need to cling to? What are the things that are life-giving, the roots that hold me close, that I need to draw on at this time? And thinking about all of this, there's an insight from William Blake's poem, A Poisoned Tree, that I'd like us to consider. In this poem, the speaker shows us the importance of conflict resolution. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not, my wrath did grow. With the friend, Blake was quick to name the problem between the two, and from this place of naming, the two were able to quickly seek and grant reconciliation. I told my wrath did end. They spoke it, they said it, they named it, and it was no more. They let it go. The relationship continued. In the case of the foe, however, Blake and the foe both were unwilling to seek such closure. In fact, the two avoid the topic altogether and let the conflict fester. I was angry with my foe. I told it not. My wrath did grow. I told it not. My wrath did grow. The foe and Blake do not speak of the sort of conflict, the whatever it is that grew between them that caused this wrath. And because they never spoke of it, because they never named it, they weren't able to let it go. With the foe, the growth that happens isn't healthy or life-giving. Because of the unwillingness of the two to let go of the conflict that had arisen between them, they became fixated until in the end destruction was visited upon them. The tree that grew into the symbol of their relationship bore poison fruit. And in the end, the speaker revels in the sight of their foe outstretched beneath the tree. While in this case, the fixation on the unspoken transgression related to an interpersonal dispute between two individuals, this same pattern of destructive forces can be applied to our relationship with past circumstances, not just other individuals. Have you ever heard someone who keeps insisting on saying something like, but that's not the way we've done it before. But that's not the way we've done it before. In my mind, this refrain is often accompanied by the mental image of a sinking ship. When this unwillingness to try new things becomes the fixation we water with our fears, it grows. And as this view grows, it takes up more and more room until there is no room for new life. Like the olive tree, whose leaves are heavy with snow, such fixation begins to drag us down to the ground. I think of the things just in the time of COVID-19 we had to let go of. Things that could have cost us our lives if we continued to cling to them, saying, but that's not how we've always done it before. And yet, we didn't cling to these things. Like the fig tree in Aesop's fable, we learned to shed the things that seemed too much to bear. We shuffled off the leaves that no longer sustained us, and in doing this, we embraced the spirit of flexibility that has begun to lead to innovation, that's allowed us to continue to worship together, that's allowed us to continue to do all of those things that we find meaningful in the church. We've not given up everything. As I said, we're still meeting as a community. We're still caring for one another. We continue to do many of the things that you would expect of a church community. And it's important that we cling to these things, because these are the things that make us who we are. They're the things that make us a church. They're our essence. Think again of the fig tree. The fig tree didn't just give up all of its leaves and cease to be a fig tree. It still had its branches. It still had its trunk. It still had its roots. The fig tree only gave up those things that no longer sustained it in the current season. The things that would have weighed it down and ultimately caused it to come crashing to the ground. By making the choice to give up its leaves, the fig tree ensured it would be alive to bear fruit for years to come. This season has brought with it some hard choices for us as individuals and as a whole community. I know I've spent some time sitting with the internal task of sorting through what I need to let go of and what I need to continue to cling to. What is it that is essential about me or this community? And what isn't essential? What needs to be let go of because it's no longer doing us any good? Perhaps it's even poisoning us. Yet we still continue to cling to it, watering it with our fear, afraid to let go. To discern the difference between these two categories of things for yourself, you simply need to take a deep breath and be honest with yourself. Ask yourself, what supports you and what drags you down? What sustains you and what wears you out? What moves you in the direction of your true self? And what distracts from the truth that rests at the center of your being? Only you can answer those questions for yourself, just as only we collectively can answer those questions for our community. But I think it's important that we try to answer those questions. Learning to answer these questions and discerning between these two categories of things is one way that we can make our time in quarantine productive. Knowing what is life-giving and seeking that out will sustain us and ensure that we continue to do fruitful work in the years to come. There's a lot of things in this moment that we are learning. New branches growing because we were willing to let go of some things. I don't think we'll know fully what we'll carry back into in-person life when this is over. And I don't think we will know until we return. But seeking now to answer the question of what it was that we could let go of. And in this time, what is it that we needed more than ever? Answering this question will allow us to continue the work when we return in person. It'll give us a stronger foundation, deeper roots. I told you earlier, this Sunday marks about the 1-year anniversary since many of you met me for the very first time. And I'll be honest, I hope we have many, many more years together. I enjoy being at Cedars, and I feel that we have a lot of great things we can still do and are still doing together. But in order for us to keep in relationship, we must be willing to reflect and learn to name the difference between what is life-giving for us as individuals and a community and what isn't. We must be willing to, at times, maybe get a little bit angry with each other, but then be truthful and tell that truth so it doesn't grow into a wrath. Speak it, name it, let it end. Our goal is to be a people who grow roots to hold us close. And in order for those roots to persist, we must, at times, be willing to shed our leaves we worked so hard to grow. Because deep down, we know these falling leaves are really the wings that will set us free. To the glory of life. In closing, I would like to invite you to join in singing our final hymn, Spirit of Life, number 123, followed by our final blessing and Chalice Extinguishing. Again, I want to remind folks that after this service, we will be having a virtual coffee hour that's taking place on Zoom. For details on how to access that coffee hour, please see the latest version of the Cedars newsletter, The Beacon, that was sent out to the congregation on Friday. And you're welcome to join in that space after the service and check in together. But as I said, at this time, I'd invite us to sing our final hymn before ending our service together.
Okay.
Our service today has ended, but our service to one another and the world begins anew. May we continue to engage in the spiritual practice of discerning the things that we need to let go of, while at the same time continuing to cling to the sources that sustain us. May this be our prayer and blessing both this day and in the days ahead. May it be so. Amen. And blessed be. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.